Hello, everyone. I'm Zafar Sobhan from Dhaka, Bangladesh. I'm joined, as usual, by Jon Danilowicz from Massachusetts, but we have a special guest with us today from North Carolina. It's Mr. Nakibur Rahman, who is the spokesperson for the Jamaat-e-Islami in the United States. And of course, I should mention that his day job is a professor of finance at UNC Pembroke. So very good to have you with us, Nakibur.
Thank you, Zafar Bhai. Thank you for having me.
And Jon, it's always a pleasure. We do this once every 2 weeks. This is the Jay-Z show, but we are experimenting with formats, which is why Nakibur Bhai is with us today. And what we're going to do here is we're going to have just a little bit of a conversation. We'll talk about, I think, the United Nations General Assembly, which has just finished a few days ago. We will talk a little bit about the latest Innovision polling, which shows the state of the electorate and the state of the nation here in Bangladesh. I would certainly like to speak to Nakibur Bhai about the recent DUCSU polls and looking forward to the elections in February. So we're going to have a great half hour. Hopefully, we'll have a free-flowing, frank, and open discussion. Jon, why don't you get us started? I think you probably saw Nakibur Bhai in New York when you were both there. And why don't you start with the questioning?
Sure, great. Thanks, Zafar. And it's great to see you, Nakib, online here as well. So behind me, first by introduction, is Fenway Park, and that's the Boston skyline. So when I was in Bangladesh, people would always ask, Apnar Desh Kotai. So Amar Desh, Massachusetts. And I'm very much at home here in Massachusetts and Boston. And we're getting ready for the start of the American Major League Baseball playoffs. And my beloved Boston Red Sox are playing the hated New York Yankees. I say this as by way of introduction because it lets you know how painful it is for me to leave Massachusetts and go to New York City. So I definitely felt like I was entering enemy territory when I was in New York last Friday. But that's as the perspective of a baseball fan. As a perspective of somebody who cares about Bangladesh, though, I felt like I was going home because my time in Dhaka made me think very much like I was in Dhaka because I saw so many friends. I went to New York primarily to participate in a reception being organized by an organization, the Friends of Bangladesh, for Professor Yunus and his delegation. And along the way, I had a chance to interact with a number of members of the delegation. So for me, the highlight of last week was certainly the UN General Assembly, the high-level Bangladesh delegation, and all of the great work that Professor Yunus and the team did. So happy to talk about that. And again, it's great to be back with everyone.
Okay, super. Nakib Bhai, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your thoughts of how did you find the UNGA? Was it what you expected? I presume it's not your first time there. And how did you find, I think one of the things which most of the people in Bangladesh noticed was Professor Yunus went, he took with him senior representatives of all of the political parties, and we took that as a sign of comity between the political parties. We took that as a sign that everyone is really on the same page moving forward towards elections. Do you think that's a reasonable way of looking at it?
Thank you, Zafar Bhai. And again, thank you for having me. I just saw Jon a few days ago. On Friday, I saw Jon wandering in the lobby. So we had a little conversation. And later on, I saw him at the Friends of Bangladesh event at the reception that Jon mentioned. So just give everyone a background about what went on. So initially, it was the thought of Dr. Muhammad Yunus that this is his last UNGA. And after the election of February 2026, he is going to leave the office. So he had this vision that no matter what happens in the election, Bangladesh needs to be united. And of course, whoever is going to be in office, they need to have some continuity with the international stakeholders. So from that, he had in mind that like what United Nations UNGA represents. It's a wholesome message. It's a message of unity. His message, his vision was united Bangladesh at United Nations. So that was his message. From that thought process, he approached political parties about sending their highest, or at least second highest person. So that was the main idea. And from BNP, Mirza Fakhrul Islam was recommended. From Jamaat, Dr. Abdullah Tahir was recommended. And from NCP, Akhtar Hussain was recommended. So initially it was these three. And then there was another idea that came in and it kind of was not presented in the media very well, because BNP also was thinking that when Dr. Yunus approached BNP, at that time, Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir was not in Dhaka. He was in Singapore for his treatment. So it was an uncertainty whether Mirza Fakhrul is going to go or not. And that's why, as a backup, Dr. Yunus also wanted to have somebody so that BNP can have a backup if and when Mirza Fakhrul was not available. So from that thought process, Mr. Tariq Rahman's foreign advisor, Humayun Bhai, was included, but it was kept as a backup. But somehow, when the press conference came in, Ministry of Foreign Affairs named all four instead of being a best. So that created some confusion and it was not actually approached by any political party. It was just a conversation among them that the way Dr. Yunus's office visioned it and the press conference.
But you know how this is. I mean, this is, of course, a big problem with those of us who are in the media, is they're always trying to look for the story. We're often trying to create a story where there really is no story. There's just, he was invited and then we're trying to read the tea leaves. Why is this person on the stage? What does that mean? and really, there's oftentimes a lot less than meets the eye when it comes to these things.
Exactly. So there was no hard feeling. There was no tension between parties that, okay, two from one was selected or one. But it just, the advisors were just concerned that it might send bad message. So basically they had another idea that, okay, one senior person from the party is going. So somebody who represents the new generation can go, so they can have two from each party. And of course, Humayun Bhai represents new generation. Tasneem Zahra was added. I have gray beard, so I probably don't represent new generation.
You never know, in Bangladesh, anything's possible.
Yeah, I'm not even millennial. I'm one more generation ahead. I'm 47, but for some reason I was considered as somebody from new generation, so I was also included.
47. That's in my eyes, that's very young. I'm proud Gen X. Jon, are you Gen X or are you the tail end of the boom? No, you're Gen X too.
So I'm Gen X, and in my household we have a baby boomer, a Gen X, we have millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, and we now have our grandchildren as well. So we have all the generations represented.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was added at the last moment. So funny thing is, I was planning on being in New York on the previous weekend. On Friday, I had an event planned, and then on Saturday, I also had an event planned. So I booked my ticket that way, and then I was also working on NRB Connect. So for that, I was planning on going back on the following Thursday. So I was planning on being in New York. Then when I was told that I have to be there, and I was not given an option, so I had to schedule, because I teach as well. So I pre-recorded my lecture and then just canceled my return flight on Sunday. And I also had to cancel my going back flight on Thursday. So basically just went there for 10 days. So I went there last Friday, which was probably 20th or 19th. Yeah, I think 19th, from 19th to 28th. So I just came back last night. So it was like so when I said it's my first time. I had a lot of expectation, or say no expectation. So I was not I was not sure what to expect, but reflecting upon the whole experience, it's surreal. The amount of attention I personally got, I'm not used to it. Also, the high level meetings that we had, I think there was a camaraderie that also was built between the three political party, which was necessary. We had a lot of side meetings with different advisors. We had side meetings with other foreign friends.
So Nakibur, why does that mean just being do you think we are, because this is a big subject of discussion here, endless discussion here in Bangladesh, are we, in your estimation, then on track for elections in February? Because at the end of the day, it really is a function of how comfortable the political parties are, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to be a joint decision of the political parties. So do you feel that for your assessment based on what you saw in New York, that we are on track?
Yeah, definitely. In my mind, I don't think there is any worries that whether there will be an election in February or not. I think there will be an election, and everybody is eager for an election. So I don't have any doubt about that. But there has to be some work done before February. Although it's also cat in the bag, but there are some challenges. Especially there is a challenge surrounding July Charter. How it will be. Again, I am always appreciative of all the efforts that every political parties are making, and there is a different point of view. Differences are good for democracy, and I don't see that as a problem. But sometimes, if it translates into kind of influencing or kind of hamstringing using other influences, that can delay progress a little bit. But eventually, I think as long as there is engagement, political parties should, at the end of the day, meet at some middle point. If it's my way or highway, we can never reach an agreement. So if everybody is open to meeting at the middle, I think there is no reason there is.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It should be a compromise, and maybe, well, I don't know. John, do you have, I want to bring you into the conversation as well.
Sure. Well, again, I think there's a very kind of clear image of those, you know, inside trying to build a new Bangladesh, and those stuck on the outside who are trying to bring it all down. And, you know, this was very much, I think, the story of the week. I was privately and publicly very concerned when the delegation arrived in New York, and there were some scenes of chaos at the airport with supporters of the former regime trying to, you know, disrupt, you know, the event and assaulting members of the delegation. I give great credit to the NCP leaders in particular, who showed real grace under pressure, both during the incident and afterwards. And I think in a sense that set the tone. And again, I'd be interested from Nakib's perspective, but for me as an outsider, it showed in very stark terms that despite their political differences, despite the political competition between NCP, Jamaat, and BNP, those parties, as part of this broader July coalition, have more in common with each other than they do with those on the outside who are trying to bring back that previous repressive regime. So for me, what was important was the unity, both symbolic and the practical aspects of it. The rejection, frankly, of the other approach, and then, you know, Professor Yunus and the delegation really working together. I mean, this was from my outside perspective, you know, the delegation made very good use of all of the members, and in fact, in some cases, the senior political party representatives stood in for Bangladesh at some of the important high-level meetings that, you know, the other advisors weren't able to cover. There were obviously individual party engagements. There were a lot of public programs. And I think overall the response from the Bangladeshi community in the United States was also very strong in showing that the overwhelming majority of people back the idea of a new Bangladesh. They may have their own political allegiances, but at the end of the day, I think the broad cross-section of a Bangladeshi American society doesn't want to turn the clock backwards. They want it to move forward. And, there's clearly a generational aspect of this as well. So I thought it was a masterstroke by Professor Yunus to invite and include the political party representatives. I'm glad they took the time to come, because I know the political parties also took criticism individually from some of the hardliners on their side, saying, why are you sitting with, so-and-so? But, these are all mature politicians. Even if in age, some of them were much younger, I think all of them showed a level of maturity. So I think the week overall was a great success for Bangladesh 2.0. But, Zafar, I'd be interested in, how this played in Dhaka, because I saw some of the headlines, but, obviously neither Nakib or I have that feel for what people are actually saying and thinking on the ground. Did the delegation help ease concerns about the path forward, or is the conspiracy theories still ruling the day?
Well, I mean, I think one of the things which it's important to differentiate here, and this is actually something which I'm going to tie in, because there's been a very a big poll run by Innovision Consulting, which just dropped recently last week. And there's been a lot of discussion on that in terms of what does the poll show us, and even the discussion of the poll, the meta discussion. And this is the point. You see, the point is what the chatterati, the talking heads, the news media, those of us, sort of sitting in Dhaka and news in television studios, the media elite think, and how they have responded is one thing. But we should not confuse that with how the Bangladeshi people in general view things. And so I think there has been some cynicism and some commentary within the media about various aspects of the UNGA, and whether it was more for show, or whether all of the points you have raised you've raised earlier. But I think as far as general people in Bangladesh concerned, it really there's almost a palpable sense of relief, because the fact of the matter is the visuals of seeing Professor Yunus there with all of the major political parties who will be contested the upcoming election together on the same platform, showing comity, showing collegiality, made us feel that that this country is on the right path, that elections will be happening on time, because there's a lot of talk. Again, if you look at the chatterati, they will say almost uniformly, oh, there's no way elections are going to be happening on time. But if you look at the Innovision polling, I think not only do 90% of the people want elections in February, I think 75 to 80% of them, if I have my numbers correctly, expect there to be elections in February. So the notion that things are not going to plan, that things are going off track, is very much kind of within the media bubble. So we need to separate those two. And I think as far as your everyday Bangladeshi is concerned, this was they caught the visuals of it the way it was intended. They thought that this was a strong statement of unity. I think Professor Yunus's idea that a unified Bangladesh at the United Nations absolutely was what communicated to people, the general public here in Bangladesh. So I think it actually was a big success, and like I said, there may be media. I mean, I shouldn't say this as a member of the media myself. I said maybe media cynicism and media carping, but I think we should also take that with a grain of salt. And you have to understand that not always are the people who are in the media the ones who should be the arbiters of how things look and what they actually mean to people.
If I could just jump in, the other thing, just from interacting with Professor Yunus at the reception and dealing with his team, both the inner circle and the subsequent circles, it was pretty clear to me that this is not a guy who's looking to keep his job past February. In fact, I remember how I was feeling and presenting to the world as I was preparing to retire from the State Department, and not that Professor Yunus is going to retire and sit by the water with his family and reflect. I mean, he's going
But
to
you
stay
recognize
active.
the vibe, yeah.
But the vibe was clearly,
Yeah.
we came, we saw, we did what we can, and we're now getting ready to hand off. So anyone
Oh,
who,
yeah.
again, is playing into that narrative that Professor Yunus is looking to extend his tenure, they're missing something fundamental.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's no question in my mind, from my knowledge of the man, my knowledge of the people around him, and the conversations, I'm a newspaper, and this has never been a realistic concern. But of course, people, of course, will look through things through their own prism, through their own interpretations. But let's talk a little bit. Let's bring Nakib Bhai back into the conversation. Talk a little bit about the upcoming elections. Have you seen the Innovision poll, Nakib Bhai? Can we ask you a few questions on that, or are you not familiar with what it has said?
No. I have been in contact with some of the stakeholders of Innovision Poll.
Okay.
So I didn't get an opportunity to read in very detail because UNGA came in.
Yeah.
I was not commenting or writing on this poll as much as I wanted to on the last few polls. Because again, I'm not a statistician, but in finance we have to deal with a lot of data. So polling like this is my forte, and I wanted to have a deeper dive into the data, but again, overall,
But you will in time, I'm sure. I'm sure in the coming days and weeks you will. Yeah.
And again, if you want to have a conversation on that, definitely I would love to. I wish I deep dived into the data more, but hopefully we can
always bring you back. We can always bring you back subsequent to this conversation. No, but I mean, I think it's generally, it's good news. It's good news for the Jamaat in that you have shown a fair amount of popularity. The problem with, not the problem, it's the nature of polling, is it's not possible to break it down constituency level. So it's hard to extrapolate exactly to what extent a popular vote is going to translate into seats in an election. That said, I think in North Bengal and Barishal, Jamaat-e-Islam were showing quite strong results. And I think if you break it down division-wise, in Barishal division, I believe, if I'm not wrong, they were the Jamaat was the first choice of respondents there.
I think second choice. Awami League was the first choice in Barishal.
In Barishal. Oh, interesting.
In Rangpur division, Jamaat was the first choice.
Okay. Huh. I need to spend more time looking at the poll myself, but that makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. If I can just jump in on polling, I've said some of this publicly on X, but we used to do a lot, or we used to invest a lot as the U.S. government, particularly through our democracy and governance programs on polling. And part of what we tried to do was to get people to see the usefulness of polling, not just as a way of kind of reinforcing previously held views, but opening their eyes to new issues. And frankly, we encouraged all the parties to develop their own internal polling expertise. For me, though, for big picture, not as a supporter of any one party, I think the poll was good news for democracy because, again, as it showed, Zafar, as you mentioned, people want to vote. They want to exercise that right. They've got a variety of viewpoints based on their local and broader concerns. And each of the parties, I think, can take something positive out of the poll, which would encourage them. But hopefully, if they're reading closely, each of the parties would see some of the vulnerabilities they have. And frankly, the interim government would see some of its broader vulnerabilities, which then would translate to the next government as well. So I think the more people start taking this information seriously and really preparing for the election. And what's interesting is even though the formal election campaign season doesn't start for still a few months, more and more as I try to reach out to my friends across Bangladesh's political spectrum, I find that they're not available because they're in their constituencies campaigning. So as far as I can tell from how many thousand miles away I am, the campaign is already well underway in Bangladesh. And that's, I think, a good thing for democracy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Nakiba, could we bring it back a little bit to the DUCSU election, which, as I said, was a big victory for the Shibir, which is the student wing of Jamaat-e-Islami. Talk to us a little bit about what was the strategy employed in that election, and how will that, if you want to extrapolate based on that in terms of your party's strategy for the general election and lessons you've learned, and how you plan to move forward using what you found.
Zafar, if you allow me to make a few comments on Innovision Poll before I
please,
jump
let's do that.
DUCSU. So again, it's a very good effort, and like I agree with Jon that it's good news for democracy that this kind of polls are taking place. A few other polling groups are doing that. I'm pretty sure all political parties are doing their internal poll. So this public polling is very important. And again, by doing this kind of polls, opinion polls are very new to Bangladesh. So the public confidence needs to be built on these polling. Still, we have a big number of undecided voters that gives hope to other parties who are not doing well in the poll as well. So that's one thing. So a few things that jumped out for me from this poll is the Borishal division that you said. In Jamaat's internal polling, Borishal division is not very encouraging. There are some progress, but I'm surprised to see that Awami League came in first in Borishal division. And BNP came in second. Jamaat came in second. So basically, if you take Awami League out, which will not be able to contest in the election, then Zafar Bhai, you're right. Jamaat did better in poll than Borishal, which is a surprise. And in Rangpur division, we have been saying that all along. And in the past Innovision poll, it showed that Jamaat is doing very well in Rangpur. In Rajshahi and Khulna, I think in this survey, Jamaat didn't do as well as it showed in the previous poll. But
in general, historically, both Khulna and Rajshahi have been areas in which Jamaat has performed very well, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So again, Jamaat is trailing BNP, and the margin is not that bad. But if you look into the numbers, the percentages in the past poll, the support for Jamaat was a little stronger than this time. But again, public opinion revolves, so it's not written on the wall. But what encourages Jamaat is the generational poll. Among Gen Z, Jamaat is more popular than BNP, even among millennials. So if you look into Gen Z, I think Jamaat has 17%, and BNP has about 12.1%, although we have 65% that are undecided, which is a huge number, and that would decide the election. Even among millennials, the difference between Jamaat and BNP is very small, 16.1 and 14.2, 64.9 is undecided. Among Gen X, also it's very close, 14.6 for BNP and 13.4 for Jamaat. But among the boomers, that's where BNP has a huge lead. So again, if I were a policymaker, I would probably not just focus on Gen Z. I would also focus on boomer generation as well, to work on that. So that's something that I can take lesson from this poll, and also some of the concerns that voters shows, like extortion and other things that came in. Favorability, I think, is another thing. Which party has more favorability, which is different from popularity. I think Jamaat's favorability is rising. So these are some of the good things. And I think so that leads us to the next question that you ask about DUCSU. I think if this poll were done after DUCSU, I know some DUCSU moment was captured in it, but generally the work was done previous before the DUCSU results. So I think after DUCSU there is a certain excitement. I wouldn't take it to the level of confidence or overconfidence, but there is some excitement among people who were on the fence. So I'm pretty sure it can go up or down. But right now, at this moment, after DUCSU, I have seen engagement and interest from different sectors, which we have never seen before. Let's just put it that way. So if you want to, Zafar Bhai, you asked me about strategy. I think Jamaat and Shibir is in election trail since August 5. That's number one. And I always say that preparation matters, hard work matters. If you put work into something, eventually you see the result. In Dhaka University, Shibir was focused from day one, right after 5th August. So I'm not in Bangladesh, but Sobhan Bhai, you probably have seen the photo exhibition that Shibir did at Mukti Juddha Jadughar. That was really amazing. They captured the moment. They went not on the partisan line. They included everybody, and it was really admired by people like Shahidul Alam Bhai and a lot of other people. And then they did what they called Science Fest, which one was planned for a small space at TSC, but the response was coming so well that they had to rent Sohrabdi Udyan for that. And that also really captured the attention. And then they just went on and on. They went on providing iftar in front of residential halls. They provided water filter. They did the celebration of July. They also did some seminar commemorating, although it was not officially on the banner of under the banner of Jamaat or Shibir, but it was inclusive. So all those
on that point, Nakib Bhai, so I have to ask. So for those people, and there are many in Bangladesh who are concerned. They say, well, this is all well and good, and of course we want to have an inclusive election, and there are new political forces here. But the concern, I think, vis-a-vis a lot of people on the liberal side of the political spectrum is, what is the Jamaat's position vis-a-vis women's rights? Where does it stand vis-a-vis minority rights? So is that something which you think is the party is addressing, and is that something which people need to know more about? What would you say to those people who say that is their concern vis-a-vis Jamaat in 2025?
Yeah. So first, let me address it in the words of Dr. Tahir. He was asked this question again and again.
I'm sure, exactly. I would imagine.
So I would echo what he said, and I'll add some more. So if you know Dr. Tahir, he has a very good sense of humor. So when he was asked this question, he again adding his humor, he said that we haven't changed. You are learning about us more and more. So that's one of the benefit that we are enjoying after August 5th, that we are able to take our message to everyone. Previously, people would learn about Jamaat or know about Jamaat from the enemies of Jamaat who hate Jamaat from their guts, right? So any Westerner would try to find out about Jamaat, and they would only depend on news coming from Indian media. And that was their version of Jamaat. It's almost like a blind or a group of blind person trying to learn about elephants, or whichever part they see. So some of those information are half truth or even no truth at all. And after August 5th, we have seen how vicious disinformation of Indian media can be. So
absolutely,
the picture that has been painted about Jamaat and that came from lack of engagement. Again, I also take responsibility that Jamaat didn't do a better job engaging and communicating their ideas. So that also has a role. Because of that, the fear and mistrust or worry about Jamaat was there. But now that people are learning more about Jamaat, they are seeing that what the perception was about Jamaat, and that also obviously came from reading negative information about Jamaat that was fed from Indian news outlet, has no relation to truth. So that's one thing. Jamaat's principle to its core, that hasn't changed. But one thing that has changed a little bit is that Jamaat has realized that, again, it is true for any political parties. You have a base, but that base is going to keep your house intact. That is going to make sure you survive. And if your base is compromised or weakens, you wouldn't have weathered the storm in the last 15 years because Jamaat was on the receiving end of tremendous oppression, to a point that most of its members couldn't even sleep at their house for the last 15 years. Many people were killed and so many others. So if its base were not solid, it would have been very difficult. So you cannot water down your base. However, you can extend your coalition. So let's just hypothetically say that BNP has 31-point agenda. I think NCP has 41-point agenda. Jamaat has some sort of point of agenda. So again, you will have your own politics. However, if you are trying to create a broader alliance, not everybody is going to agree with you on all your 41 points. Let's say somebody agrees on 20 points that you are making, as long as they're not asking you to strike down the rest of the points. But as long as you have a common ground, you can go forward with that. If somebody else agrees with 15 points, you can build a coalition on that 15 point. You can still be passionate about the rest of the things, but for now, you are not going to promote that as a coalition. You will only talk about the points on agendas you are agreeing upon. So Jamaat is slowly trying to broaden the coalition and bring in not just political parties, but individuals, people from different areas who agrees on some of the agenda of Jamaat, not all agenda, right? So that is giving dividend. And induction,
politics is as you said, it is the art of compromise. It is the art of coalition building. It's the art of finding common ground with people. Exactly. And you may find common ground on some issues, not on others. But as long as we can all learn to live with one another, and that's how you move forward as a country. We're almost out of time, unfortunately. I wish we could have this conversation for much longer, and I wish I very much would like to invite you to join this show again in the future. But before we call it a night, Jon, do you have any last words, maybe last questions for Nakib Bhai or observations of your own?
No, nothing. No questions. One observation, but again, on a bigger level, I'm really enjoying these conversations, and I'm thinking the three of us are sitting around someplace with Shafiq in the corner, and then just us talking, and we'll obviously have the chance here to have other people listen on our conversation. The final substantive point I would make, though, is looking both at the DUCSU election and looking forward. I think the other real kind of takeaway for me was that the candidate matters. And the people said this actually in the poll, the Innovision poll, and that may account to some extent for the undecideds. For some of the parties, again, maybe Jamaat falls in this category, it's already pretty clear who the candidate is going to be. For the BNP in particular, though, given the nature of that party and given the leadership change underway, if I were a voter in Bangladesh and I was asked whether I would support the BNP, my answer would probably be, well, it depends. Who am I actually voting for? Which individual?
Absolutely.
And I think this is both the opportunity and the real risk for BNP is I could see them choosing, again, some acceptable, younger, impressive candidates to take the party forward. I could also see them kind of rounding up the usual suspects and the old wine in new bottles. So some of these politicians on the BNP side have their own track record. And should those people come forward, that could end up being a drag on the party. So I think the polls point us in a direction, but the political parties have agency, and who they select as candidates and what those candidates do during the election is going to be very significant. And I agree with you, Zafar. We have to have Nakib and others from the political parties back on the show to kind of explore these issues a little bit further.
Okay, and Nakib bhai, I'll give you the final word.
No, Zafar bhai, thank you very much. It's a enormous honor. I'm really humbled to be in your show. Definitely, we will continue our conversation. Just still final word that Bangladesh has changed. There cannot be business as usual. Voters, like Jon said, they are not going to vote in party line in this election. Candidate matters, hard work matters, effort matters, and all those things are going to be reflected in the election. You cannot take things for granted. You cannot think that just because it's a symbol, you are a big political party and people have no other choice but to vote for you, it's not going to work. So I'm looking forward to February, honestly, and I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of new leaders would emerge from this process, and it's a good thing for democracy.
Thank you so much. On that note, thank you to our guest, Nakibur Rahman. Jon, it's always a pleasure. And thank you, all of those who are tuning in. Please join us again 2 weeks from now. Thank you.
Thank you.